big beard.
Hey, Kayla.
Hi, Iyanna.
Welcome to Fill in the Blank podcast.
Welcome.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another week here at Fill in the Blank podcast.
Fill in the blank. I have to do that every time now.
Hi, Iyanna.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
That's great.
Yeah, I'm great.
So, what's been going on since the last time we talked? How have you been doing?
I've been good.
That's it?
Yeah, I mean, there's really not been much. Let me see what's happened. I didn't do anything for 2 days straight. I self-care. It was great. I just watched TV. I binge watched Bridgerton all over again.
That's so good. I'm ready for I haven't had the time to sit down and watch Queen Charlotte yet. So
It's so good.
I'm really excited.
I was crying by the end of it. I love a good cry.
Yeah.
So that I finished the 4th book of the series, A Court of Thorns and Roses.
Yeah.
Finished that today. So now I'm so sad, but I'm leading into the 5th and final book.
Oh wow.
It's 700 something pages, so we'll see how long it takes me this time to
get through
to fly through it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that Mother's Day, I didn't do anything.
You did nothing?
No, I did nothing. It was great.
Chilled out.
I just chilled. I did send everyone their happy Mother's Days though.
Yeah.
I sent Asia. Oh God, look at Asia. I sent Asia hers. I sent my mom hers, of course. And then a couple of my friends who are now mamas.
Yeah.
And a friend who wants to be a mother. I sent her a happy Mother's Day too.
Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah, but I launched my YouTube.
Yay!
I've been talking about this for a year plus.
Yeah.
And I finally did it. Natalie kind of yelled at me. She was like, Iyanna, just start already. My therapist also was like, because I was like, yeah, if I get this, she was like, Iyanna, you keep saying if. I was like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it. She was like, okay, but do you want to do it? Like, you don't have to do it. I was like, no, I want to do it. She was like, okay, so say you're going to do it. I was like, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And then I finally just did it. So I only let out the intro video. I just have so much footage to edit through. Mm-hmm. So that's really what I've also been doing aside from reading. And my eyes hurt, my brains hurt from like staring at screens all day.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of footage.
Yeah, you've been recording for a long time. You just haven't
done anything with it. So a lot of footage, but yeah.
Well, I'm super proud of you because that's awesome.
Thanks.
That's something you've been talking about for a long time, and you finally just started.
I did.
That's the scariest part, is starting.
It really is the scariest. Well, and then there's also the scary part that we've both felt when you get into a project and then you feel a lull and then you're like, kind of want to quit
yeah.
Yeah. So I'll be waiting for that part because I'm sure it'll come.
No, don't expect that though. We're going into it with the expectancy of all the positivity that's going to come from you starting this channel.
Yes.
Instead of the lull, because that's not the good part.
It's not the good part, but I do feel like it's realistic.
It is realistic. It will happen, but undoubtedly.
I think the thing what I need is like I need to prep myself with the proper tools, so when I do experience a lull, then I know I can like push through it.
Yeah, that you have the like what we've talked about before, like the grit.
I need
to get through.
I need the grit.
The grit.
I love it.
But yeah.
What about you?
So I graduated.
Woo!
That was cool. I was the only person I think who walked out.
When we were at this freaking graduation, I hear Miranda and Ariel whispering next to me saying Kayla was gonna leave early. I was like, Kayla can't leave early. And I'm looking at even like everyone getting their PhD. They're like doing their due diligence. They're walking all the way down, taking their picture and walking right back to their seat. I was like, Kayla's not going to be able to leave. They had stuff blocked off and everything. Kayla was the only one. And I was like, she's not going to do it. There's no way she's going to do it. And I see her like stop the woman. She goes, can I go to the bathroom? And I saw her walk off and she looked at us. She go, all right, wrap it up. And then we all just started leaving. I was like, Kayla really just did that.
I did it.
She said, I did it. I was like, you're a rebel.
Yeah, I had to get up out of there. There was no way I was sitting through that whole ceremony, and my parents had to get
she
back.
said I got my degree by.
Yeah, I mean, it was a long drive. It took us like almost 3 hours to get there and then back. So I just did not want to sit through the rest of the ceremony.
But imagine if we did stay the entire time. Well, I guess in some ways we kind of did, but not really. We were leaving right when everyone else was getting out.
Which was perfect.
Because number one, if you hadn't left early, we would have been trying to take pictures with all those people around. You got so many
and caught up with all the cars coming out.
All the traffic. So we timed it perfectly. But I can't imagine what time I actually would have gotten home that night because it took us a while to drive. And then we went to dinner. And then we went to Nana's house. Mm-hmm. Not me calling her Nana. Like, that's my Nana.
That's your Nana, too.
We went to Nana's house. And then by the time I got home, I was like, pooped.
Yeah. I was exhausted, too. I was really tired. But
it was cool, though. Did you add my charm?
I did. I have to show you. I have it in the room. I haven't even worn it yet, but I went and put the charms on there. Iyanna got me some graduation Pandora charms for my bracelet. So
she's always like, happy. No one ever gets me charms for my bracelet. I was like, what am I going to get her for her graduation? I was like, I know.
That was so thoughtful. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, so, and then on Mother's Day, an update from the last episode, I did decide to stay home.
Woo!
So I stayed home. It was surprising because it's almost like I still have the expectation of like how my relationship previously used to be with my parents. And so I thought my dad was going to respond negatively. Yeah. I just thought that he might feel like I was kind of making up an excuse or something.
Yeah.
But then when he responded, he was just super like, I just feel kind of like helpless as a dad that I can't take that feeling away from you. And he was like, I feel really sad that it's this hard for you today. And he was, I just want you to do what you need to do and everybody will understand it,
First of all, I'm really proud of you for having the courage to do what we, of course, advise you to, but what you felt pulled for you to do for years now. Mm-hmm. But this was like the perfect time. And I feel like this was a perfect storm, but this is the perfect moment for you to do it. And you took the courage to just walk into that. Mm-hmm. And it paid off.
Yeah, it did.
It did. I know that adjustment with adjusting parents and your new relationship, because for even still now, sometimes I react to my dad as if he were his old self. And I was like, you're not that person anymore. I'm not that person anymore. And we just have better ways of communicating and navigating things now.
Yeah.
So I definitely understand that. But I'm really proud of you, Kayla.
Thank you.
And I'm happy that you had a good Mother's Day.
Yes, I did.
The one
it was really chill. Also, in other news, yesterday I started counseling back.
Woo!
So I went back to my counselor.
I love that.
And it's just super timely because what we're talking about today has so much to do with what I was talking about in counseling yesterday, which was basically we always come back to talking about my inner child and kind of giving to myself the things that I feel like I might have lacked from childhood and trying to discover more of like what are my emotional needs that are unmet. Yeah. And then how we can redefine those now in my adult life. So today, guys, we have one of my very closest friends, like somebody that we talk about all the time on this podcast because I love her so very much. Everybody love her because she everybody's favorite, okay? And if she not, I'll fight you. Anyways, we have my girl, Chloe.
Hi.
Chloe money.
Period.
Lolo.
Period.
All the above.
Period.
Hi, Chloe.
Hi, guys. Okay. I'm so nervous.
No,
oh, my
goodness. It's just us. I mean, like there are real people out there, but
invisible audience, but nonetheless, like it's just
we can't see them.
All right, yeah, that's true. That's true. Chloe, you don't have to be nervous. It's just us, and we be so lackadaisy about stuff. We just like, hi.
Honestly.
Just weirdos.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I just have so much respect for what y'all do here. Oh. So, and I'm a fan of the show. So,
man. I'm crying. I'm gonna cry.
I don't know how to sound on the mic, but that probably sounds crazy.
Random noises.
But yeah, no, I just got a lot of respect for what y'all do here and in therapeutic spaces. So
because this is your cup of tea.
It really is.
Yes. I love that. Well, that's why you here.
Is this your first time on a podcast?
No.
Ooh.
So it wasn't based around therapy. My cousin through marriage had a podcast about just like music and culture. And so I was there previously. We talked about the intersectionality of like being a religious person that listens to secular music and how that shows up.
Discussion.
It is, especially everyone in the room was raised in a really strict religious household. So it was a fruitful discussion.
That's good.
A part of that discussion.
It was lit. The title of it was Mama, I Just Listen for the Beat. Like it was just like, because like when your parents like, why do you listen to that? And like, it's just for the beat. Like that's the excuse when you come up. It was such a fruitful discussion.
I like that.
But yeah, that's my resume prior for podcast.
Come on now.
Just for podcast.
Hey.
You know. Well, before we get into like who you are, just tell us how have you been? How have you been? Because I haven't seen you since
the dress fitting.
Yeah.
Why does that feel like that
wasn't
so
that long ago?
But it feels like it was a really long time
It was a month ago. Am I tripping? Was that
about a month ago? Yeah.
That's a long time.
That's a long time.
Whatever. Before we get started, how are you, Chloe?
I think I'm okay for the most part.
Come on, honest answer.
Look, I be trying. I think, and Kayla and I have talked a little bit at length, and I know she got into that in previous episodes, but, my mom is, she has a little bit of a health situation. So like Mother's Day and things like that can sometimes be hard for me. It's a little bit difficult for me to know how it'll hit me on any given day, because she's been sick for quite some time. So I think I was really sort of taking inventory and dealing with the ups and downs of that this past weekend. And really, also being proud of myself that like, even though parts of the day were hard, I was able to still feel joy at different parts of it.
Yeah.
I think sometimes I'm like, if the beginning of the day is bad, then it's all gone.
Yeah.
So I've really been trying to work on like redirecting. So, it's felt like some up and downs. I think that sort of has been the big thing, but yeah, just trying to feel all of it. And I think okay for the most part.
Yeah. I'm like, it's a very human experience. To feel all of it.
Yes. That's so good. I really admire about you that you always answer so honestly when you are sharing how you are actually doing, because we were just saying like it's so easy for you to just quickly be like, I'm good, and keep it pushing and knowing that that's not the honest answer. So it's just very admirable that you always try to answer honestly.
Yeah. Thanks, cuz.
I'm so weak.
I'm so dead.
I don't know how to accept compliments for real. So
it's okay. I'm gonna just keep giving you compliments until
it's hard.
Whenever,
baby, you're gonna get some awkward answers and some awkward facial expressions.
That's okay. I'm used to it.
If you like it, I love it.
So, what are we out first? Actually, before we get into what we're actually talking about today, I want to give you the opportunity to actually introduce yourself and like your line of work, how you got into that line of work. Just give a little bit of background in the hat that you wear professionally.
Yeah. So I'm Chloe Glispie-Gogins. I am a clinical therapist. So by way of, I have my license in clinical social work. I currently work with people with various eating disorders. I do a lot of bulimia nervosa, binge eating disorder, emotional eating in general. I would say specialize. I'm trying to be so weird saying that about myself, accepting my expertise. But I also deal heavily with like depression, anxiety, and personality disorders are like, sort of my bag. And I've been practicing clinically with like a terminal license for about 5 years now. Because I graduated with my master's like around 2019. So that's sort of where I live right now. I also am now recently the owner of my own private practice. Get that money. But it's called Mizani Therapeutic Services. So I'll give resources after. But that's just fairly new. So I'm still building up clientele for that. But I'm like really, really excited about that.
As you should be.
As you should be.
Yes.
It's a blessing.
It is. So how did you find your way into the counseling profession? What was it that was the spark for you that made you decide that this was the field that you wanted to go into?
That's such a great question. So I think that to some degree, I've always sort of felt like an introspective person. I think coming up, especially in adolescence, is when it was solidified for me. Like I spent so much time in my head.
Are you an only child?
No, I got an older sister.
Okay, is it just you two?
Yeah. Even though my mom is like raised like 7 children, so we are, it's a crazy story, but biologically only 2 kids. And I was raised for the longest with my older sister. She's my big little sister. But nonetheless, I spent so much time in my head, to my detriment sometimes, coming up. And I spent a lot of time alone. And I just sort of remember in high school, it's actually an issue. I wouldn't even like eat lunch in the general area. I had like a lot of anxiety about it. And so I just typically stayed to myself, and like my peers started to like come and find me and just talk to me one-on-one. And I was like, I'm like, why are y'all finding me? Like I'd be on the back stairwell and they'd be like, hey, can I talk to you about something? And then they'll just be like, telling me stuff that would range from like my boyfriend broke up to me to like, my dad put his hands on me last night. And so though I was underqualified, I think something felt really like natural to me about being in that position and like offering advice or being like, yeah, you should go tell adults. I was definitely like, adults should know about this type of person. So I don't know. Yeah. From there, I think I knew pretty early on, I went into college knowing I wanted to be a therapist. Yeah.
How did it feel when you finally got into the position that now you're doing the thing that you kind of felt that you've always gravitated towards naturally doing? Like you are now working with a population of people that you're able to help. So does it feel good to be able to work with them in in the clinical fashion, since you have been the advice giver always previously?
It feels so surreal. It feels so surreal. It's like you pray for something so long and you envision it for so long. And then I think when it happens, there's I know you spoke to a little earlier, there's this like lull, right? Like there's this like, dig. So this is it. And when you fantasize about something for so long, there's no way that it actually meets the expectation you set for it because you fantasized about it. Same thing I experienced with marriage. Like I was just on a pedestal for so long and I got married and I'm like, everything's still great, but I guess this is it. Like, I guess I'm just with this nigga forever. So similar to my profession. Yeah, even with getting my private practice, I've talked about it so long, but when God brings it to fruition, there is this sort of like, dig, what's next? So yeah, it's a mixed bag. I'm excited about it and it feels natural. It feels like I'm walking in my purpose, but it also feels like, is this all?
Yeah.
I'm also dealing with those feelings as well.
Yeah. Well, I think just from the outside looking in, this is me again about to pour into you. That he's like, dang, man. But I think that you are doing an amazing job. And I think that you are continuing to push forward, that even if it may feel like, dang, this is it right now, with the things that you are pursuing and how you're seeking to expand your knowledge and your professional life, it's going to be so abundant in the future that you're going to look back and be like, wow, like I did all of this to get to this point. So I'm super proud of you. And that's the reason why we had to have you here today, so that we could have this type of conversation about reparenting yourself. I think this is like super interesting when you sent over like different topic ideas that we could talk about. I think that for both of us, that was one that kind of stood out and we were like, ooh, that's really good, because it's something that I think can particularly impact so many different people. So can you give like a background about what reparenting yourself means and why people would seek to want to reparent themselves in like their present life?
Yeah, I can. First off, thank you for speaking life into me.
Of course,
I
always.
love you. I appreciate you.
I'm
trying to get better at taking it and letting it sit. Instead of being like, stop it. So I appreciate that. But no, so jumping into reparenting, it's so interesting. I really nerded out in terms of the research. So reparenting is really like, it's a present term that's used, but like the actual therapeutic and psychological act of reparenting, whether it be in therapy or whether it be with yourself, has been around like since the 1950s. So it's gone by different names. So it's been called transactional analysis at one point, inner child work, interrelational work. Nothing new under the sun. Like it just sort of comes in different forms. So more popularly, I think it's known as the act of giving yourself what you didn't receive as a child. That's sort of, layman's terms, the popular definition. In terms of the clinical definition, it is a specific form of psychotherapy in which the therapist like actively assumes the role of like a parent or guardian or a surrogate parent in order to treat psychological disturbances caused by defective or even abusive parenting.
Wait, the counselor does that?
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that without crossing some form of boundaries with your client?
Baby, I'm gonna get into it, baby. I'm gonna get into it. I got you. We get into it. It's such a great question. So I think that in the act of reparenting, doing psychotherapy, you're not actually calling your therapist mom or dad. Yeah. They're not showing up to events. There are really strict boundaries around like not seeing each other out of session, right? Like not communicating outside of session as well. You're not texting this person, right? Because it is when you're doing reparenting, and that was something that is really, really key to the psychotherapy. Boundaries have to be really, really strict, or it gets really inappropriate really fast. Yeah. And in general, in therapy, boundaries need to be strict. But when the heart of your therapy is using the interaction between the clinician and the patient as the heart of therapy, it's gotta be really, really strict. I would imagine so. Yeah, it's gotta be strict. But like the benefits are really good. And also, I guess in terms of even the therapist, it's also not like they're being like, what was your mom like? And like reenacting it or anything like that. But you may do some exercises like, if your mom was here, what would you say? Yeah. So yeah, there are different limitations to it. But I know, when I was reading, I was like, I want to be careful of how I explain it because it can be really scary.
And I will say, like in studying, when I was studying and I went over psychotherapy, I was like, first of all, this is a practice that I probably would never incorporate in the way that I treat clients because it is so, like you said, it's very specific and it has to be within these parameters. And when I was a child, I went to counseling and a counselor performed psychotherapy on me and asked the exact question that you did. And like you said, it has to be the right time, and the timing that he utilized this on me, it was inappropriate because I was a child and he was asking me, this is in the height of my grieving my mom. And he said, if your mom's sitting right here, what would you say to her? That type of thing. Like if she was here, like if she's sitting here, and I was too young to conceptualize like what was happening, that it did kind of cross a boundary, and then I never went back. So you do have to be so super careful when utilizing psychotherapy, and it has to be like your bag. Like everybody has different ways that they practice and the art to their way that they do therapy. And if it is not your thing, it's not going to work out well.
I would imagine you probably have to know how to read people extremely well and how to assert yourself fairly well, because with something like that, it sounds like you would have to pretty consistently reassert boundaries every single time.
Yes. Yeah. And knowing your client well enough too.
Yeah, I think that's also something I wanted to add, right? Like reparenting is not something you get into on the first session or the second session or even the third session. Like it's months of rapport building before you say, all right, can we deal with this stuff? Because I think childhood trauma, adolescent trauma is so insidious. It sticks to the bones. Yeah. It is really inappropriate to dig into that stuff when you're not ready. And in the same way, in like a relationship outside of therapy, you open up after getting to know someone, your therapist has to earn it too. Yeah. It moves a little bit quicker because you know why you're there, and it's an agreed upon one-sided relationship, but they got to earn it too. So it's not something you jump into quickly. And it sounds like he moved a little bit too fast.
Oh yeah, that was like the first session I had with him.
Yeah, no, that's not what you do.
Yeah, super inappropriate.
Yeah, that's not what you do.
The first one? You're a child?
That's not what you do. That's
Dang, no rapport building.
No, and that's like one of the most important things that you
That's
learn. Like
with a
counseling
child
101,
especially,
you
that's
have to
crazy.
build rapport first and foremost.
Yeah, my first session with a kid is playing games.
Yeah.
What you into?
Yep.
You know, I ain't gonna take it easy on you.
Yeah.
You lost. So what happened at home? Yeah. Like that. So yeah, you take it slow. You gotta take it slow.
Yeah.
Sounds quick.
Okay.
But I'm sorry that I've cut that off. Did you have anything else that you were trying to share that I
You ain't cut it off. No, well, I think the only other thing I wanted to add is that it's a really useful tool in terms of like attachment styles, and I know y'all talked about that before. In terms of like avoidant attachment, anxious attachment, reparenting is really useful. I think when we think of reparenting, we think innately about like the mother-child, father-child, guardian-child relationship, but like we're also parented, by society in ways. So I think that like it's also really good for populations that have been like bullied, so minorities of various things, or people who have just been like bullied in adolescence. And I consider minorities to be persons that have been bullied in a sense by society. So I think that we're parented by people outside of our homes. So reparenting can also be useful, even if you haven't had trauma within the family system itself. Any person that was influential to you where the bond broke down, it can be a useful tool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, this is something that essentially pretty much everybody can
I was
utilize.
about to say,
Yeah.
I would imagine that the severity of it depends on like if you're doing like self-reparenting or if you need like professional help like with reparenting. But nonetheless, I feel like everyone could probably benefit from
In
a
some
little
way,
bit.
shape, or form. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are some of is there like a specific like warning sign that you might need to like, okay, I really need to dive into reparenting. Like this is an area that I should be focused on.
Yeah. So a really critical or chronic low self-esteem. So a really critical internal voice is a key to me that you need to be reparented. Also, again, people with abusive, absent, or dismissive internal dialogues.
Wow.
It's like as soon as I see it, I'm like, ding,
Help.
ding, ding.
Help.
I know, hold on, yeah, tell me what's going on with you. I'm like, you have no reaction here. Is it hidden?
Well, no,
Is it
I was
hidden?
about to start bust out like that's why my eyes are wide because I was trying to laugh so hard because I keep looking at Ariel, but I'm like, wow, wow. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. But yeah, those are some of the key populations that all know innately probably would benefit from that type of therapy.
Yeah. Do you think that like as she was talking, there was something that you were like, ooh, I actually might?
I mean, I think I've done my own self-reparenting throughout, but some with professional help too. Since I've started counseling, even through the marriage counseling, what I hadn't realized is there was a lot of that going on without the psychotherapy, but just in ways of in confronting like how I speak to myself and how I think about life and my perspective and in general, or even just what my reactions mean and all of that has been a part of my growth in the past like year and a half since I've started counseling. And low self-esteem, as well as like having issues with establishing and asserting boundaries and like terrible self-talk or terrible like victim mindset, like stuff like that was like what I realized I needed to shift and change, and things that I've worked on quite a bit for the past year and a half. And have helped me blossom to this beautiful young mess right here. But nonetheless, like when you were saying like, wow, yes. All of it.
Yeah.
All of it.
How do people typically get their start? Because I know this is something that I'm working on as well. Like I said, I'm constantly talking about this in my counseling sessions because of the fact that I have had a lot of the things that you mentioned on the list about, having like an absent parent, not because of like choice, but because I had a parent that passed away. And then there's trauma that goes along with that. And then when you have like anxious attachment styles and avoiding and all of these different things, it does start to build, like you said, like that critical self-talk and all of that. And then you are now at the place where you're just like, how did I spiral to this place? Like it just happens, And so it's something that I'm constantly trying to heal from. Because like you said, that those wounds from childhood can be so insidious. Like they just literally like creep and live inside of you until
like
you
leeches.
It really does. And so for people who are in that same position, how do you get your start? to be able to move forward, to be able to like take action to reparent yourself and to be able to give back to yourself maybe what you've lacked in your childhood years.
Yeah. So I want to break that up into two parts, because I think in terms of reparenting, there's a definite like really clear clinical sort of step-by-step process, and then there's like things that you can do with yourself individually. So depending on like what your audience is interested in, right? Like which one you want to go with, or if it's some amalgamation of both. But I think that one of the first steps is understanding that the voice in your head did not just come from you, right? Like I try to tell my clients, I'm like, and it's also why reparenting is important, because the messages that we have about ourselves rarely originate from us, right? We pick them from different times of our life, whatever we've heard repetitively coming up, it sort of sticks. And eventually, right, it goes from being your mama's voice calling you lazy all the time. And then it's like Iyanna's voice, right? And then you're like, well, this is who I am. And so I think when I'm working with my clients, I really sort of, number one, try to get to like the origin of the voice, and really exploring. So like, where did that start? Getting into the history of it. You know, I'm not saying that you can't, even if you can't identify the origin of the voice, I'm not saying that it's any less effective, but I think that it is a really good first step in terms of understanding like, where did this come from? Because these words didn't start with you. Right. You weren't like born being like, I'm inadequate. You heard it like somewhere. Who told you that? Right. You heard it somewhere, and you heard it consistently enough that like a plant, it took root and grew in like sort of your garden of development. So I think that's sort of one of the first steps. But I don't want to go too far.
No, keep going. That's good. I sorry, small tidbit. I've been saying for because I used to work with moms teaching like parenting and teaching child development and stuff like that with who had kids like 3 and under. And I used to say that like, how you speak to your child is what their inner voice is going to be like. Yep. Because it's so impactful. And you don't realize it even until like your adult years, when you're like, why am I feeling like this? Like even with my therapist, I just had a session with my therapist where I kept calling and I was like, I'm so lazy. She's like, I know, why are you calling yourself lazy? She's like, look at the facts here. Like you've accomplished things. You're taking resting time. She's like, where's lazy coming from? And then I remembered where lazy was coming from. Who used to call me lazy. Sorry.
And then it lives in your head. I was going to add to that I think it could also be, outside of it being somebody verbally telling you that, it could be people treating you as society. That thing as well. So teachers, there are so many like nonverbal cues and things that people do to your body language, and people pick up on those things, and it makes them feel like I am inadequate, or like you used, I am lazy. The voice that I have constantly tried to cancel out is being dang it, what's the word? I always use it. It starts with a C. Being competent. Like I have somewhere in my life, nobody has ever said to me like verbally, Kayla, you are incompetent. But I have been made to feel incompetent by people in various stages of my life. And so then that's where that voice comes from. Also your perception, because your perception is then your reality, and it's what lives on in your mind and what you think and what you feel.
Yeah. This is so random, but I just thought, because while you were talking, I personally would imagine, and I don't know, because I'm also a minority and a woman myself, but I personally would imagine like whoever has like is like the minority of has the most minority in a way, probably has like a lot of boundaries when it comes to, or barriers when it comes to breaking through with positive self-talk. Because I would imagine that society has like taught them, or myself, or like anyone else who's like a double minority, a triple quadruple minority, like that they are one thing and they fit in this one box. And then I feel like there are small things that like people don't think, okay, this is look, I'm rambling now. This is very random, but sometimes when I'm in a group, I realize I have a sensitivity because I've talked about this earlier, how I'm typically the shorter person, and people usually don't make eye contact with me. And so most of the time I like zone out of conversations anyways. And I realize it's a habit now, because I'm like, no one's talking to me anyways. Like no one's paying attention. And I realize that that's also something I have to work through, but something I realize I have to reparent, because it's an immediate thought, like no one cares to talk to me. And so I just zone out.
Yeah.
Because I'm short.
That's not true.
But
you're not the
but
first
I feel like
person,
it came from being
You're
short.
not the first person I've heard say that. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard that in sessions before, Chloe, but I've heard people who are shorter talk about.
Really?
Yes. I have a coworker that is
people.
short, and she talks about being treated a certain type of way because she is short.
Yeah.
Like that feeling almost like the chip on your shoulder. Like they do me this way because I'm short.
Because I'm short.
Yeah.
I've also heard it in the opposite end. Like some of my shorter patients feeling extremely patronized.
Yes.
Like people will tap the top of their head and do weird stuff
I've
like
had
that. Like they
people
not
come
grown
and
people.
rest their elbows on me.
crazy.
People have picked me up.
Yeah.
And it's the picking me up part that infuriates. I turn into Jack. I'm like, like I get so upset. Like I'm a grown ass woman.
Yeah.
But then also like people assume that certain things about me, like, oh, she's so innocent and she's this, she's that, and I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
Where the fuck did that come from?
Where'd you get that one from?
Where'd you get that? Anyway,
like I was gonna make a nasty joke. Y'all know nothing about me.
I'm so weak.
Professional today, though.
Just today, though.
I'm so weak.
Just today, though.
Okay. We gotta get back on track.
Back on topic.
I know where we left off at though. Because
Wait, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Though, so I know you mentioned feeling like no one ever told you that you were incompetent, but you sort of picked up that. And I also know, like, we talked about it, and like in some of your early episodes, you talked about like, you know, coming up feeling like there were certain limitations to you being like catered to. I don't know if you feel like, does that feel like a catch-22 to you? Like coming up, having people be like, you know, what does Kayla need? What does she want? X, Y, Z. Do you feel like that then took away opportunities for you to do stuff for yourself? And then you got through them trying to make sure you were comfortable, you got the message that, oh, you're doing it because I can't do it for myself. I'm just,
that is part of it. I've always said that is a piece of it because of the fact that, and I have this conversation with my Nana all the time. I have a chip on my shoulder because I have so much help from my family. And while it is a blessing because it has put me in the position to be able to pursue my master's and be able to carry on to set me up for success in the future, is something that I constantly have to grapple with myself about. Okay, like, does this mean that I don't have the ability to do more? Or is this just a phase of life that I'm in right now? So that is definitely a piece of it. Okay. It also is that I am seriously a product of the people that I am raised by, and that they are all very kind of like, and this is why I want to break that control factor of like, this is the way to do it. And then if you don't do it this way, then it's not right. Let me do it. You know, so I've been raised around those, like brought up by those kind of people. And while I know that they do it in a place of love, it has impacted me in a way where it has made me question my own abilities. Because of the fact that it's like, well, do you not trust me to do it? So then sometimes I do end up coming off defensive. Gosh damn it. Chicago. That's why sometimes I end up coming off defensive about things, because of the fact if I feel like someone is saying something to me and I have in my mind ways that I can handle the situation, and someone's like, well, why don't you just, like you could do this or you have to do this. I'm like, I got it. Like, I know. So I come off like that, but it's because of the thing that I'm dealing with internally of the desire to feel competent, the desire that people will look at me and be like, oh yeah, Kayla could handle this. She has it. If she needs help, she'll ask for it, type of thing. So I haven't necessarily had that experience. So it makes me super on edge when it comes to the ways that people extend help to me, how they offer it to me and things like that.
Yeah, trigger something.
Wow, I just learned something new about you.
That's deep as it.
Yeah.
Oh, my Kayla.
You did that.
Deep shot.
You deep. You asked the question. Right. You put it together.
You ramble through your own stuff. Yeah, look.
You therapizing yourself.
Look, I handed you the tangled up cord. You live. Untangled them drums. Look, you good.
I know that you shared the ways from a perspective of like, if people wanted to kind of cope with these things themselves. Did you share that part, or did you share the clinical one already?
No, so I was getting to that. So
okay.
I'll run through the clinical one.
Okay.
So in terms of like going into treatment. So step 1, accepting that the current voice is no longer adaptive. and a part of step 1 is also identifying the origins of the voice. So I like to tell my clients that, like, you know, think of the internal voice as like clothes that don't fit anymore. Like at some point, maybe your dad being like, you know, clean that room, I'm gonna whoop you, you know, motivated you to do it. But like at this point, when you talk to yourself that way, it makes you even more sort of, you know, unproductive.
Yeah.
So recognizing that it doesn't work anymore, because not all of the voices that we've gained from our childhood or throughout our life are like maladaptive. So really sort of understanding the ones that just don't fit you anymore and the ones that you need to shed is one of the first steps. Second step is to focus on building the muscle of redirection, is what I like to call it. So whether that be through affirmations, distractive coping, sort of non-triggering TV, music, calling friends. Like, you know, if you dealing with chronic low self-esteem, do not put on Euphoria. Don't do that. Like, you know, you want to be really conscious of what you're turning on when you're trying to distract yourself. Because again, I think in the first stages of trying to reparent yourself and trying to give a new voice to yourself, you want to be really conscious of the media that you're taking in. So I think also in terms of building the muscle, you want to work on self-talk, right? Either out loud or internal. A lot of my clients use voice memos. I'll tell them, walk down the block, pretend you on the phone, let that junk out. You know? So a real way of like literally giving a voice to what you want to be saying to yourself, while also addressing the parts of you that are, you know, sort of like a cancer attacking you. 3, I also really like rumination and chaotic journaling. So this is something that's become a little bit more popular. People will just get journals without lines and they'll just go crazy on that journal. Sometimes they'll paint in it. Cool. So I encourage my clients to sort of practice chaotic journaling. Whatever's coming to your mind, even if it's the thought itself, write it. Like just write it as many times as it's occurring to you. Write it, and then write the redirection thought somewhere in that same phase. I like to think of it like, you know, when you were coming up, they would say write the spelling word 5 times each. It's sort of using the same tactic, right? You write what is, and then you write what should be as a way to sort of internalize it, and it works wonders. So that's step 2, and then she
know her stuff, y'all.
Then also setting boundaries to protect your inner child. So I know, you know, we've talked about that. Boundaries is a big thing. And then also sticking to the consequences. This is what I like to tell my patients. You do not make your consequences. So this is going to be a hot take. You know, I tell my patients to be wise in the consequences that they set. Don't make consequences too extreme unless necessary, but be a fierce protector of your progress. Because what happens with my clients is like, you know, they'll be like, man, you know, I told my dad not to comment about my man and he did, so I'm never talking to him again. And I'm like, you know, that is, I mean,
hold on there.
You know, and obviously after a while, if they think about it and that's something they want to uphold, I tell them to do it. But you want to make sure that the consequences that you put in place don't compromise you further. So even though your dad makes comments about your man, he is also a really great resource of self-esteem for you. So you don't want to cut off that relationship. But I'm also not saying you have to be around him. So, you know, I sort of walk them through stages of consequences for overstepping boundaries, because I think people are either like, it's the cutoff generation. I used to be the cutoff queen. And then I realized I was losing a lot of good relationships, right? I was throwing the baby out with the bathwater, essentially. So, you know,
with the bathwater. Okay.
It's a really dark saying.
Okay.
You haven't heard that one?
Hell no.
Oh,
Country look, infinite water. But, you know, I try to encourage them to create levels of consequences when boundaries are overstepped. So maybe the first you have the conversation with the person. We cannot assume people will understand our boundaries. People aren't raised like us. We can't assume that they would know to not comment on our relationships or our bodies or things like that. We just can't assume. So I think, you know, I say step 1, you know, it may be you have the conversation first. You say, if this happens, this is what I'm going to do, right? And that may be anything from like, I will take space from you for a week if you do that again. Or I will will no longer talk to you about this topic. Or if you bring this up, I will walk out of the room. Making it really clear, this is what's going to happen. And then when you say it, and if it happens again, you get up and you do that junk. And I also think in addition to making sure that your boundaries aren't super extreme, it can be really hard even for patients to enforce really extreme boundaries. So for your sake, on multiple levels, you keep the consequences of overstepping boundaries with your inner child to levels, because you also have to grow in your ability to enforce boundaries as well. So people who be, making extreme boundaries with their niggas, let it, and like, hey, you texted so-and-so, I'm gonna cut you off. And then they end up getting back with him is because they don't really have the wherewithal to enforce that big of a boundary.
Yep.
So you got to be wise about the boundaries that you set and the consequences that you have attached to them.
Yeah.
And now I'm done rambling about that. So those are the sort of steps that I'll take as a clinician in clinical therapy.
That was good.
That's really good. And I think that people should be able to relate, because even though I don't think that I have heard it in the way that you put it about specifically with boundaries before, but people talk about that a lot when it comes to goals and how to not set too big of goals for yourself and overwhelm yourself. And then you're ending up in a position where you're not successful to complete them. And so it's almost the same thing with boundaries. Like, you want to be able to give opportunity for things to work themselves out, for you to realize that a person's mistake does not necessarily define them completely, but also like there has to be boundaries around different pieces of that person that might not be conducive for you all's relationship.
I will say the boundaries things it's a recent lesson that I've taken on in the past year and a half, because I thought I understood what my boundaries were, and then I realized I didn't have good boundaries with myself, so I couldn't even even when I said I was going to do something, I wouldn't even do it, because but I realized, because I was also a part of the cutoff generation. Oh my God, I was a part of the cutoff generation. So I'd be like, oh hell no, what's up with it? No. But I realized I was doing myself a disservice by not flexing, or at least by not exercising my skills when it comes to communication and with setting boundaries, and just doing the relationship a disservice. Like, at the end of the day, I want to say that like I put in the work that I try. Like, I genuinely try to mend things but of course that takes two people who are willing to be respectful and learn each other. But nonetheless, like this is beyond, because people love to be like, this is about you. This is beyond romantic. I'm just in friends in general, just relationships as a whole, in all aspects. Because even when it came to friends, I used to be really quick to cut people off when I started to see stuff that I didn't like, and I'm like, I don't like how she's communicating that. Like, why is she acting so childish? You're like, and I'll be quick to do that, but not understanding that some people just, they can't read your mind. Like, and other people need room to grow too. Like, that's a true relationship. If you can press your friends, like, hey, like the way you're coping it's not healthy, or the way that you're communicating with me is making me feel some type of way. And I realized, like, I'm doing us a disservice. What am I doing?
And then not taking things personally. Because that's like the toughest lesson to learn that I think that I've learned, like, going into my 20s, like probably around 25. Learning that most things are not personal. Most things have so much more to do with where that person is in their life at the moment, and not a personal attack on you. Even when they might be lashing out in a way that it is attacking you, a lot of times that it's not the root, like what you talked about, like the root of that issue, like where it's really stemming and coming from is rarely from you as a person. It's more so based upon what they're going through internally.
I agree. Long story short, give people the grace.
Absolutely.
The grace.
Go ahead, Chloe.
No, I was just going to add, because what y'all said was like so insightful. I think for one, even Dig, I lost that job super quick. No, I remember. Okay. No, I think in terms of like taking things personally, as you sort of see how people interact and how they may overstep your boundaries, I really encourage my clients to like hold both. That hurt my feelings, but also you going through stuff as well. Right. Holding them at the same time. And I think also even, as you mentioned, Iyanna, right? Like you sort of recognize that you were doing yourself and those relationships a disservice by like not communicating and cutting off. I also think in essence, creating layered consequences for people who overstep boundaries, it's beneficial. Dig, why am I losing this junk? I'm losing this junk mid-sentence. No, it came back to me. Edit this all
out.
No, but it's also beneficial because it increases respect in the relationship as well. When somebody knows that you do what you say you're gonna do, whether that's coming through on a promise or coming through on a consequence, it builds respect. Consequences just get a bad rap because people feel uncomfortable with them. Right? We feel happy when you come through on a promise. When you come through on a consequence, it be, dang, I was hoping you would skip that shit. No, I told you that if you said this to me, we weren't gonna talk for a little minute. So we're not gonna talk for a little minute. But I'm gonna hit you up on this day. I'll feel ready to talk about it then, and we'll be good. And again, it's uncomfortable for people, but it bolsters respect. Respect on both ends. You respect yourself. You're like, dang, I'm really that nigga. I really cut this person off.
I did that.
You know, I really took space for a few days. Like it builds both inner respect as well as from that person to you. And it really decreases the chance of them overstepping again, honestly. But
it really does.
You gotta make reasonable consequences, stuff that you can stick to. So that's sorry. That was just
that was really good.
That's good. Come on, Thought. I'm glad it came through.
So I wanted to, before we wrap up, because I know we're getting close on time and we could talk about this forever. So we probably are going to have to do a part 2. But we had some questions that we actually got from our stories. So you all, if you are watching this and you follow us on Instagram, make sure that you are catching up on what's going on. Oh, it's my hair. Catching up on what's going on with on the stories so that you can submit when we have guests, and we want to, give you all the opportunity to interact with the episodes as well. So we kind of talked about this, but if there is any more, someone said where to start daily practices. So is there anything extra that you didn't mention from the things that you mentioned before? You like, let me check my notes.
Let me check my notes. So I guess really quickly in terms of self-reparenting, 10 quick steps. I found them online. Be self-compassionate. Honor your feelings. Cling to curiosity, not judgment. Be patient with yourself. Work towards consistency. Return to your why. Embrace self-discipline, seek joy, release blame, have fun, and focus on self-care.
That's good.
And when you look at the crux of those things, it's literally what you would think about when you're raising a child. Yes. So I think just literally take that junk. No, like for real, like take that junk and apply it to yourself. Kids benefit from consistency. Yes. Give yourself a consistent schedule. Kids benefit from fun. I think we really undervalue the therapeutic impact of having fun. Yes. Like even in simple ways. Like you ain't got to spend a bunch of money, but like if you want to sit in the tub and splash the water. If you wanna be in the shower and then do the little Spider-Man thing, like do that junk. Like do that junk. Like 30, 40, like I really encourage my patients to like engage in childlike fun because we think we have to give that up. So all of these things are really sort of, if you think about what would I do for a child I love, take that junk and direct it inward and be creative with it. And that's how you sort of reparent yourself.
Yeah. I love that that's how you say it, because I know when I realized I had gone through a period of just like ignoring everything in my childhood, everything that all the habits I picked up, all the poor perceptions, I finally had a moment where I was like, my kids are going to see this. And so I realized like, what would I want for my own children? And what would I want for because they learn through modeling most of the time. They see what they see and then they like take it on without even realizing they're taking it on. So I realized like, what do I want my kids to have for themselves? And a lot of that is I want them to be self-confident. I also want them to give themselves grace, but also like be growth mindset and constantly be inquisitive and like learning new things and giving other people grace and setting boundaries. Like those are all things that I wanted for my kids. So I was like, those are things that I need to start learning how to do and implementing for myself. Yeah. So that's what really started my reparenting journey, is realizing like one day I'm going to have kids and they're gonna be looking at me.
Yeah. No, that's so real.
What the hell is this mess?
Like girl. No, that's true. We have a couple more, but I know we're running out of time. So what we'll do though is that we'll give you the opportunity to respond to them and we'll post them on the story so that we can still answer them because we have a couple more. But before we go, I want to thank you so much, Chloe. You know how much I love you, and I love that you were able to come here and let your light shine of who you are professionally and people being able to get a glimpse at why you are so special to me.
And to finally meet you, because I've heard your name.
Yes, like constantly. Before we wrap up, I know that you are no Instagram, no social media shorty, but where can people find your businesses if they want to, pay you coin.
Yes. So I am available for individual therapy, supervision to other clinical therapists, and I do panels as well and speaking engagements. So you can contact me at Glispie-Gogins at MizaniTherapy.com.
Yes.
So I'm sure we'll
we'll
put the
put that
spelling
in there.
somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll put
Got
that
a
in
long last name, strong back. But yeah,
Okay.
that's where you can reach me.
I love it. And also, before we go, you brought something that you wanted to share. So this is also another resource that people can use. And what is it called and who is it by?
Yes. So it's a book called How to Do the Work by Dr. Nicole LaPera. She's really popular on social media. She has an account called The Holistic Psychologist. So she's really, that is her. Shorty is lit. Yeah.
Wait, I think we. Oh wait, sorry. Go ahead.
No. You're good. So I'm about like a fourth of the way through the book, and it's been really good. It is a read. But yeah, I definitely recognize maybe starting here, or following her account. She's just one of the resources that makes it really easy and clear on how to do the work of reparenting yourself. So,
Yes.
yeah, resources.
Super
Check
cool.
it out.
I'll definitely take a read for that one because I'm in that journey right now. But as always, for our socials, you know that you can find us on TikTok. I'm going to get it right this time. feelintheblankpod on TikTok. Yes, I got it. On Instagram, we are feelintheblank_. Before I get to our socials, you can also follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube and make sure that you're watching our lovely visuals so you can see Chloe's lovely face and our lovely faces that you see every week. And then you can follow us on our individual Instagrams, me at astoldby.Kayla and Iyanna at
Iyanna.Amar.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in again this week. We love you all. Bye-bye.